What's the case? The
McMartin.
The McMartin
Yeah, it's
Preschool.
famous preschool. People don't know. I don't know the details behind this one again, but there was alleged of hundreds of kids were molested there.
Absolutely, and it wasn't just
around
McMartin.
60, I think.
It
Well,
was
they all said they were brought to these like tunnels, but there's no tunnels.
tunnel
found.
systems.
They explained what were in them, the satanic rituals, and they were just oh, these kids are crazy, manipulated. Years later, he dug up and found 45-foot long tunnels, giant. They didn't find them all even, but these massive tunnels.
Oh yeah,
It had pentagrams drawn on them.
Oh, yeah.
Bones of hundreds of bones of animals. This is
No
like
doubt.
real shit. You know?
So Ray Bucky, the key perpetrator in that case, right, the McMartin Preschool, it turns out you have Will Bynum, who's this investigator, right? And I think it was the Manhattan or Hermosa police department at the time. And he was effectively, they murdered him and claimed it was a suicide because he was actually, the day before he was going to testify and actually discuss the details of what he discovered at the McMartin site, which was dead rabbit carcasses at one of the filled in. So they had discovered that there was foreign soil that had filled in the tunnel
because they wanted to hide it after it got raided. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that alone revealed the fact that there was a tunnel system perfectly in place, which, by the way, the individual who ordered basically, I forget the name of the individual just offhand that actually ordered the construction of the McMartin Preschool, but he had actually built that tunnel system and had it dug in before they ever actually created.
Like pre-planned.
Yes,
because it just sounds so crazy. The kids like, oh, we're getting brought through tunnels, sometimes flying places, doing satanic rituals. People are like, oh, that's just crazy.
Right.
Then they found the tunnels.
yes, they did.
There was a lot. I don't know the number. There was a lot of kids saying it.
Oh,
At the time,
100%.
though, like as you mentioned, I believe there was some document that came out. You correct me if I'm wrong. That essentially implied, oh, we didn't find, like essentially didn't mention the tunnels, and it wasn't until later that, like much later, after it already got written off as satanic panic. A lot of people always like to point to how like none of these, none of these, these did start to go to trial, and then they all just fell through one by one until there was no one applying. But you got to think the same thing, like from a legal standpoint, if you're like, think about the chances of actually going through with prosecution with a child. Like, think about it, as twisted as it may be, from the ultimate perspective. If you were trying to tear down the credibility of a child, not too hard to do. But it's also the Yeah, go ahead.
The False Memory Syndrome Foundation. They instantly infiltrated. So all these MK Ultra,
Jolly West probably involved in this.
exactly. They infiltrate, the McMartin case, and they legitimately decide that they're going to undermine the credibility of the children victims, the child
I
victims.
think it might have been like
Wasn't it?
hundreds even. It was so many.
Jordan Peterson had on Michael Aquino's wife at some point, didn't he?
Oh God, that's just terrible.
Yeah,
That's a fun one to go look back. He completely going with the satanic panic narrative in that little bit. I never
That's
watched it
exactly
entirely,
what
but that's
happened.
exactly what that
It's
is.
easy for it just to sound crazy.
Yeah.
It just sounds so insane when you
it
hear
does.
this stuff. But then they find the tunnels. They have the, people constantly dying, and then all the stories are the same. Like tons of these cases always mention tunnels. Like almost every case, not on everything, but a lot of times the kids remember say, "Oh, we were brought through underground tunnels." That just sounds so insane. But then, oh, here are some tunnels.
I think it was 60 children they said from McMartin. I think somewhere in the realm of that. That
It was a
claimed,
lot. I know
and
that.
one of which I think claimed that a Mikey, Michael Aquino,
Yeah,
and
it
I
was
believe they
Michael
even like
Aquino.
described his like
Oh, dude, here we
inside.
go.
and
He
So
was the
this
guy who was
is-
tied in with intelligence. The church is set, right?
Yeah,
He's,
right.
he's tied
So-
in with like all these cases. It seems like
This is the Presidio connection, right? Which ties in the
Well,
West
it's
Point
Presidio, not
scandal.
McMartin. I always mix those two up.
Which again, Michael Aquino, it shouldn't go without being said as far as he has military intelligence connections, and there's very much an overlapping thread that you can tie in.
NATO
as far as-
connections, as we mentioned earlier.
Exactly, and by the way, he's going to the Belgium castle where they're holding the pink ballets for Marc Dutroux, the victims of Marc Dutroux. Yeah, man,
he's right there.
Yep.
And by the way,
This
two
is
of
the
the
case where it's 100% proven that kids were tortured
Exactly.
to death.
And two of the victims in the Marc Dutroux case went to an event the night of their abduction where they were hypnotized live in front of an entire crowd.
No way.
I swear. And as far as that's concerned, it to me it's proof positive that because that was the night they were abducted. Yes, man.
Yeah,
so
no, it's like they said stuff you don't want to believe, but when you start seeing just too many connections, it's just like
it's absurd. And beyond that, it becomes undeniable at a certain point, and that's where you find yourself in an extraordinary position where you have to kind of actually grapple with the fact that this is the power paradigm that we're witnessing play out in front of
probably
us.
it's
before our
true.
eyes.
You don't want to talk about it because it's so dark and
Man.
like, you sound crazy, but then you start seeing all the points, and you're like, something's clearly there.
I think True Detective probably does one of the greatest jobs. I bring this up frequently to like kind of highlight this. Yeah. Season 1, highlight this concept. It's like one near the end, kind of the penultimate of all. He says at one point, he's like, essentially, I refuse to look away again. And this is as they're watching one of the child snuff films in this, and it's like. And he's like, did you watch this? And he's like, I won't look away again, because he had dropped the ball about this case years prior, and because due to his inattentiveness, and he recognized this, and he says, I will not look away again. So he watches the snuff film and said, I had to watch for details, and I watch this over and over again because I will not look away again. I will not let this be on my conscience.
That's what I watched that.
And that was kind of the theme of that whole season, in my opinion, because then you have Marty, the other cop. His whole thing was he's inattentive, and he was a normal guy that didn't want to believe this is real, and he refused to see the signs that were there because he didn't want to see what was real. He refused to look. And I think that's important. I mean, we need to be evil in the face and, shine a light on it.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Like I said, recommended several times before, is everyone should go do their own research, what we're saying, because you start digging, you start being like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to sound crazy. You're like, well, okay. Yeah. Well, let's be crazy together.
And there's so many cases that are connected, and you start seeing the same themes, the same thing done. The kids always the exact. That's what really got me when I realized the kids are all saying the exact same story. See, I saw that before I stopped across the road. I'm like, why are these kids always saying the exact same story? Are they abused? They make them abuse each other.
It's a psychologist, twisting them.
I think maybe because the kid's like purposely innocent, and they want to like take the innocence or abuse the innocence.
Absolutely.
It's like the ultimate evil.
Trauma-based mind control.
The ultimate evil. Yeah. The Process Church of the Final Judgment. That's a book by Maury Terry, The Ultimate Evil. It's an amazing book, and it exposes a lot of what you're talking about. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like once you kind of like realize the level of sadism that's involved with these groups, right? That is where you again.
Like it's bad. Like I don't even want to talk about it on the show. People want to dig.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into details.
Where's the places they can dig if they want to? Because I
so
don't want to.
There is something called the X dossier that I encourage everyone to go and look, man. As much as it's what you were just talking about, as far as like I refuse to look away. And
it's dark.
Yeah, and again, take your time, because don't do what I did, where you overexpose yourself and too short of a time.
You have to step away when you go down these rabbit holes.
I got to a point. I've never done this before, where I just stopped and closed my eyes, and I couldn't read anymore, man. I couldn't. I knew what was coming in the next sentence, and I just couldn't fucking read it, man. You know what I'm saying?
You realize ultimately evil is real. And they take these innocent children, and what they do to them, it's just. Like I said, in that case, it's 100% proving, and the same. All these other kids, and like the Franklin, they're saying kids were killed, and they're making them kill them, and like the lead investigator to that, plane blew up.
Yeah,
he was
Gary Caradori.
He had a lot.
You know what else? They were surveilling his private phone communications, so that's the reason they knew his whereabouts, his movements,
and then
where
he said that he was literally
the FBI or CIA.
He was reporting back home saying that he had essentially
he was just saying he had the information.
Smoking gun,
exactly, and he was taking his son allegedly to go see a baseball game right in Chicago or some shit, and in reality that was to go actually pass off credible evidence, right, or receive credible evidence from a
it was literally where he was going.
So he's flying back from receiving the credible evidence with the briefcase that was never discovered in the crash.
I didn't realize. I knew he was close to stuff. I didn't realize he just went and picked up. I know he was saying he had some serious information. It was about to come down, and boom.
And you brought up True Detective. Like I consider 8mm all the time. The film with Nicolas Cage, which I didn't even know about in the 90s, like 99.
I haven't seen it.
It's like 1999, and
it's
I
like
just
truth and fiction.
True. Yeah, it's blurring the lines. Truth is far stranger than fiction, right? And that's basically what 8mm is discussing that. They claim that snuff films, right, are some sort of like myth, right? They don't actually, they don't exist. That was legitimately in the 90s. That was
it's
the
still
line.
The line.
And
when you get to talk to official sources, it's like, well, maybe that's a thing, but it's like there are basically confirmed instances. I mean, once again, I can't recommend enough. Eye of the Chicken Hawk, really great book on this topic, and a lot of the things we're talking about here, like Dutroux, Finders, all of this, are weaving it all in and out. I mean, hell, we didn't even touch on North Fox Island.